Welcome to a Railroads online building tutorial. Today I'm here to show you guys how to wrap your track around a tight bend. For example, like this one that I placed around the outside of a turntable in order to make that look like it's properly supported apart from the other holes there, but that's more of a problem with my graphics card and the game on low settings taking off the end of embankment. Doesn't really matter for this, we are going to take care of this with walls and that kind of deal. Before we get into that though, there are a few considerations to be made. First up, which turntable do you want to use? Where do you want to put it? And also what material you want to use for the outside ring. You don't even need to have a turntable. I might as well just want to place another ring around the outside over here. That's also perfectly fine. The method is the same. It's actually pretty versatile and I'm happy that I came up with it a few days earlier to build this thing here. But yeah, when it comes to the different materials that are possible, here's a little collection of them. They don't really all bend the same though. Embankment, no problem at all, nice smooth corner, same for the different wall types, but once we get to trestle bridges, this is where it gets a bit janky. While the deck of the bridge does its thing, it is a nice continuous bend, the same isn't true for the trestle itself, so if you use either the steel trestle or the wood trestle, you might end up with the bottom part looking a bit janky and yeah, not really much I can do about that. It gets much worse, however, when we take a look at the bridges with the outside guardrail. Those parts basically don't bend, they are just segmented differently, so it may look awful in the end. Cannot really recommend using them. But yeah, whatever you want to choose, the method once again doesn't really change much. Just make sure that you're using your material from the get-go. Only exception is the wall without track on top. I'll be using the one with track because for some reason this one cannot be chosen by the parallel track tool and we need that for quite a few steps here, so yeah, I'll only be placing in the one without track on top for the last steps, but there's gonna be a lot of temporary stuff. Just make sure you're always using the material you want to have there. Okay, so much about that. We are still not gonna get started though, because, well, there are still more things to think about. We have our material, we have our turntable. So now the next question is, how high do we want the material to wrap around here? Over here, I've made it pretty much flush with the turntable itself. Also works out pretty well with the track going in and out of the turntable. But for this one, I'll be going a bit lower. Maybe something like this, just barely covering the bottom of the foundation here from the turntable. So yeah, I would like it to be a lower ring, and I think I also don't want to align it to the very outside, but instead maybe make the outer ring a bit more narrow. So it's gonna be more like half or 2/3 of the width of the wall. But right now the main thing to take care of is the height. And also, if you don't want to build this as a full circle going around the entire thing, and instead connect it to something else, you need to make sure that whatever you have in mind, the angle of your first part needs to line up with whatever you want to connect to later. So pick out the correct angle for your first thing, then you are good to go. But yeah, since I'm also needing to take care of the height, I'll be basing this off this track right here, because that's easy enough to line up on the right height level. And again, for a full circle, the starting angle doesn't matter at all. So I want to place it somewhere like this, and I'll just be placing down a long piece of track in precise mode. So we're not gonna go with the wiggly stuff over here. We want it nice and straight. Just like this. And the important part here for the track pieces that we are building is we're going to be moving them sideways. And there is going to be overlap from the turntable with the track, and we always want to keep in mind the part that's the most overlapping. So in other words, if we go perpendicular from the track, what is the part that's going straight through the middle of the turntable? That's very important for different things here. But yeah, we have our first track here. That's all looking nice. And you know what? To make things a bit easier to see, I'll also get rid of the connecting spline here. As long as it's only one spline that you are removing, it's easy enough to put it in later down the line. And yeah, the next proper step is to take 45-degree crossovers and place 3 of them around over here. So I'm going to place the first one on the end of the track. Make sure that the thing is straight. I think this one is slightly crooked. Doesn't really go off in a straight line, and that's something that you need to take care of. If it's something like that, just get the part out again and hit the button to change the link twice, and then it should be working. I don't know why they are going off at weird angles, but yeah, you want it to be as straight as possible. Anyways, you only need 3 of them, and then you are good to go for the next step. So let me get my chosen material out again. And again, if you go for embankment, you take that. If you go for trestle bridge, you take that. The important part here is that once again, I'm placing down a spline, and I'm going to have to make this one long enough that it goes past the middle point of the turntable. So if I went that direction, it would be completely useless. I need it to be something more like this. I'm also going to do this for the last piece now, and just in case I need to remove one of the middle ones, because I need the track to go here, and if it doesn't do that, just remove one of the crossings so that you can snap to the point that you actually need to have. This one is not ideal because I'm basically very close to the middle already, so you know what, I'll just grab another thing to snap onto, then remove both of these, and then just replace this thing. Just to make sure that I'm going across the middle here. And yeah, that's pretty much that done already. We are having 4 pieces at 4 different angles, and that's exactly where we should be. Now let's get the parallel track tool out and go for the next step. Just grab any one of the tracks, and now we are going to bring them in. And this is where we need to take a look at how much the turntable is overlapping the track at the maximum point here. And we want to line that up. This is going to determine how large the circle is going to be in comparison to the turntable. For example, I would like, in the end, the wall of the turntable to follow the inner rail over here, so I'm going to line it like this. We now also need to grab the same piece of track again, because we need to do the same thing on the other side. There is a way to do this later and skip half a step, but I figured that it would actually get a bit messy and less precise if you do that, so better to get everything to go all around the entire thing right now. Takes maybe a minute or 2 more, but it should be much better to deal with afterwards. So let me just grab this one here. And doing the same for the last 2 shouldn't really take too long. Although, honestly, this is one of those steps where it's really good to just take your time, make it as good as possible, because if you are rushing through it like I am right now for the sake of a tutorial, you are likely going to end up with it looking worse in the end. So try to get the distance from the center point and from the turntable to the splines we are placing the same right now, it's gonna look better in the end. But yeah, this is exactly what it should be looking like. And from this point on, we have 8 tracks that are nice and snug up to the turntable, but they are still all straight. So it's not entirely done yet. Now we need to take something to snap to. We could still use the same splines, but I like it to be something different. And I just chose the stopper here because that can be snapped on in mid-air. And I'll just be snapping it on to the ends of the tracks that I just placed. Need at least one per track per side, or just on one side I mean. And make sure that you're not just going around in a circle and always placing it to the same thing. At least one of them needs to be different in order to get proper snapping points in the end. You're gonna see that on the next few steps. But yeah, I got this one. Now I need to take care of this one as well. That one. This one, and I think we are done. Yeah, that's looking good. Now that we place down the snapping points or things that we can snap to, we can get rid of everything that we placed so far apart from those. So let's just delete everything that is not one of the stoppers. Just to make it a bit clearer what we are going to do from this point on. And then we should be left with something like this. Looks like a bit of a mess, but yeah, there is a method to this, and we are going to see the fruits of everything we've been building up to in a moment. Now we just want to take another straight piece of our track and bring it over to basically where the cutoff point of the spline is in line with the middle of a turntable, or as close as we can get it. This is a bit more art than science in some ways. So yeah, just gonna do that. And do that for the entirety of everything here. Going around the full circle. And just like this. Another one over here. Should be 8 pieces in the end. Just like that. It's always a good idea to maybe go a bit further than the middle, because then you can see at which point the turntable is really coming in onto the rail and at which point it's going away again, and you're just aiming for the point where the direction changes. Basically, you're building everything tangential. Just like this. And this should be the last one. Okay, that's already looking a bit more orderly. Now time for the final step where we actually circle the whole octagon over here. So just take the material that you want to use, as you should have done so until this point, unless you are working with the same walls as I am. And now you should be able to just snap it to the end of the tracks that you just placed. Go between them. And always make sure that your first snapping point is at an open part, so you don't get to this one here, where you might just get the wrong direction. And you can just snap it back together from there. Just like this. And you quickly go around the entire circle. And should be done with this in a moment. In some cases you might not be able to get a proper snapping point, but once you get enough things going, then it doesn't really matter anymore. For example, here I'm just going around the other side, finding this snapping point, so I can continue from here. And the last part is gonna be a bit weird in that way, because, well, I mean, never mind, this is working out. But yeah, from here to here, I wouldn't have any proper snapping point. But since I already placed tracks connecting to this, I can just get rid of both of these, and now it's opening up. And from this point on, just remove everything that isn't supposed to be here. All the temporary stuff is gonna be gone, and at that point you can finally see the full circle that you just built. And if you took enough time aligning everything, it should also be just perfectly circular and centered. Mine might have a few minor imperfections which don't really show up too much right here, since I'm overlapping it in a way where it's not easy to see any changes. But yeah, last thing here is to of course reconnect the turntable, and at that point we are basically done. Just like that, yeah. Of course I could now go around and do the entire thing again on the outside, I could turn this into a castle tower or something if I want to. Really just depends on your imagination, and nothing else is really stopping you. Unless you want to go too small. But yeah, this is basically how this entire thing works. I hope you found this useful and can build something cool with it. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, have a good one, and bye bye.